Yes, now we are recording this session. All right. So with that, let me introduce our host, Jared Gold. So this is, I think, probably the third time that Jared's led this webinar for us. And it's one of, like I mentioned earlier, it's one of our more popular ones. So Jared has two businesses, and he started, his first business was Brevity. And as a result of doing Brevity, he discovered, hey, there's this whole other area, niche of the market, solo practitioners that need websites, and I have a way to do that. So he founded Website by Tonight. For those of you that don't know me, I'm backtracking, and I've got, every time somebody joins, I get a chime in my ear, so that's a little distracting. So I'm Liz. I'm one of the co-founders of the Professional Independent Consultants of America, and I'll be helping to run and facilitate today's session. So there's two quick things I want to cover before I hand it over to Jared and continue with my introduction. First is I want to say a few words about Pika. I think a lot of you are already members, but for those of you who are not, Pika is a membership organization that was created by 3 independent consultants who realized there was no single reliable place to go for help. And so that's why we invented Pika. So instead of wasting hours trying to figure things out on your own, now you have a trusted place to go for help. Today's event is an example of the type of programming that we do and the type of practical help that we offer. So next, let me introduce Jared. So over the last 6 years, Jared's either created or given advice on several hundred websites. And as I mentioned, his first company, Brevity, was targeting business-to-business firms. Brevity still exists, by the way. But in leading Brevity, he discovered the underserved niche of our solo practitioners like us. So he launched Website by Tonight, which streamlines the process for people like us. He's generously agreed to share his secret sauce and his methodology. But if you feel like it's still too overwhelming to do it on your own, you can always go to Website by Tonight, and he'll tell you more about that at the end. But I will tell you that as a result of attending this webinar, you will have the information you need to build it on your own. It's not that complicated. Okay, so over the years, Jared's become quite the website expert, and he hosts a popular course on Udemy, which I'm sure I pronounced incorrectly, and he's actually featured right on the Squarespace website as an expert, and he'll explain what Squarespace is. I'm handing it over now to Jared, who currently lives in Washington, D.C., but I think is moving in the next few months based on what you said before. So Jared, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Excellent. Thank you, Liz. And can you hear me okay? Am I coming through clearly?
I can hear you fine, so I'm going to assume everybody else can too.
Perfect. Yeah, so thanks so much for having me. It's either the third or fourth time. I can't remember. Time blurs for me. But it's always good to be here with your awesome engaged community. And thank you for that intro. So the number after speaking and collaborating and doing hundreds of websites, really what I found is the number one reason that people don't have websites in general is that they are overwhelmed and they don't know where to start. I think all of us have been to numerous networking events, and the topic of a website or marketing gets brought up, and everyone has an opinion, and most of those people that have an opinion haven't actually been involved with it themselves, so they just kind of regurgitate and try to give advice on something they don't know about. So for example, I always say forget everything you think that you need, in quotes. So you don't need tons of social media followers, you don't need a massive email list, you don't need fancy search engine optimization, or SEO for short, and you don't need a fancy logo. Not to say that those things don't have value. They do have value, but they're more of long-term assets that you build towards. It's not that you need them all on day one, and a lot of times they don't even make sense to have on day one. You need that simple professional website first to then have the ability to even gather those email addresses in the first place, for example. So what you really need as an independent consultant or solo practitioner is a simple brochure website. So it could be as simple as a one-pager, or maybe up to 4 to 6 pages. And it usually has something like home, services, about, contact, And in a perfect world, there's an additional page or at least section for case studies or testimonials. Even just, it could be some nice testimonials with quotes that are anonymized or have the actual client you worked with, or even small case studies such as perhaps 3 paragraphs saying something like the background uh, on the organization that you worked with, the opportunity, so the problem that was there, or background slash problem that was there, the approach that you took, and then the end result. Really quickly, Dean asks, will you get the notes and slides for this? And Liz, I believe you're going to send them out after this? She said yes, great. So for anyone else wondering, don't worry about taking notes immediately on this. And so the purpose of this simple brochure website is honestly to get your prospective client slash ideal client to meet with you. So you want to make it super easy to reach you, with the secondary purpose of establishing credibility and professionalism. So what I want to, and the reason I say those purposes is because some people think they need to include all of the possible information for a client to be able to just pick up the phone and say, I'm ready to buy, or to just imagining there's like an e-commerce component on the site where it's, click to buy $5,000 to $20,000 consulting package. And that's really not the point of the website. The point of the website is really to show who you are, what you do, and the kinds of clients you work with, and help them succeed in certain capacities, so that so that prospects that are not a good fit just politely go elsewhere and leave your site, and the prospects that are a good fit, it really clicks with them, and they say, oh, this is the kind of person I should chat with, and feels compelled to fill out the contact form to have you both start the conversation. It's not a purchase. It's not a matter of trying to get them to purchase right on the spot without ever having to talk with you. And so I think there's a few key things that make a good website. So firstly is that there's just enough info, meaning that it's easy to read and obvious to take the next step. Remember, the next step or ideal action that someone takes on your website is for them to fill out your contact form to request to have an intro call, right? That's it. There could be some alternative call to actions like getting on your newsletter or whatever, but really you want your ideal prospects. The most valuable website visitor is a good prospect that possibly wants to work with you and fills out that contact form. So you just need enough information to get them to start a conversation with you, and then you take it from there via your standard, sales discovery, client discovery process to see if it's a fit, and going from there. Next, you don't want a website that looks like it's just been sitting collecting dust. We've all seen those websites that have blog posts on the homepage from 2015, or outdated or blurry pictures, or links to social media accounts that haven't been posted on since 2016. That is what I would consider a website collecting dust. So make sure that it looks at least somewhat new, or at least that the content hasn't been sitting for years, right? Next is less is more in general, kind of corresponds to the first point. And and on the sub point of that is avoiding large blocks of heavy text. So a lot of you probably go to different websites, and the most modern websites that look the best that you see probably don't have too much text, or at least not these multiple lengthy paragraphs in a row. Usually it's something like short snippets of text to help you get the big idea, just to give you enough information to take that next step. So maybe it's purchasing a small, inexpensive online item, or requesting an appointment by filling out a contact form. Next, you want to have high quality photos. And what's really good about that is there are numerous stock photo sites now that are either free or very inexpensive, maybe $10 to $33 an image type thing. And they look great, and they look like actual photographs as opposed to the cheesy stock photos of maybe the early 2000s. So there's no excuse now to not have good high quality photos. They don't have to be super, super specific. And if you do have a headshot of yourself, I recommend it's a good recent professional headshot. I think that's important. And then lastly, that it looks good and relatively uniform on all modern devices, including mobile. And so if a website looks good on mobile, chances are it's automatically adapting from the desktop version to fit the size of your mobile phone screen, so you're not zooming and pinching your fingers and scrolling around. You all might remember maybe as early as like 5 or 6 years ago, there wasn't many mobile-friendly websites, or there wasn't as many as there should be. So there was, you'd click on the site and you'd have to zoom in and scroll around and be a pain. Nowadays, that's fortunately pretty rare, or much rarer. And so a website that automatically adapts to the screen size, such as on mobile, is called a responsive website. So good news is that to create this new website, you do not have to know how to code. Instead, the most common way to make a website these days is to use a content management system, or CMS for short. And essentially, a content management system can be compared in a lot of ways to a drag and drop website builder. There's nothing to install. It just works right in your browser. I recommend just having the free latest version of Google Chrome and you're all set. A content management system has lots of features and is easy to maintain yourself. And if your website is not super complex, meaning it doesn't have these complex databases or very complex e-commerce capabilities or what have you, you can get, I recommend a content management system that is already hosted for you. So they do the website hosting and they have the software, and that'll get you up and running quicker. And in all of my research, I've tried many, many different kinds of platforms, being content management systems. And really, Squarespace is the best hosted content management system. And I have no financial relationship with Squarespace, unfortunately, because I send them a lot of clients. But this is just, I've tried out numerous different platforms. I've always been on the prowl for the past about 7 years. I've been doing this, and really Squarespace is still the absolute leader if you want to create a simple professional website using their platform, and they also host it for you and provide amazing customer support. So Squarespace has everything in one place. They host it for you, super fast and secure hosting. They already have the templates, so you don't need to download and install templates like you would something like WordPress. They have fantastic customer support, and chances are they have all the functionality you already need built right into the content management system platform, so you don't need to install different widgets or plugins or what have you. Squarespace is also the most intuitive to use. Their customer support is by far the best. I've had clients switch over from other platforms like Wix, and their customer support is unfortunately sorely lacking compared to Squarespace's. Squarespace does have the ability to implement other widgets and web-based software in case you want to. So for example, if you wanted to embed a contact form, if you use something like HubSpot, or if you wanted to embed a live chat widget, you could very easily do that. It's just a copy and paste of the custom code. There's no real technical ability even needed. And then it's also very easy to monitor, quickly update, and scale your website, whether you want additional design tweaks, additional pages, more complex marketing features. So it's a great platform in the sense of once it's set up, it runs pretty well on its own. It doesn't require these additional plugin installations or updates or anything like that. There's really not security issues like there is with platforms like WordPress, because they require you to always update your site, which could break other things, etc. So not only is it pretty easy to create a nice site, but it's easy to just keep it running without always having to worry about it breaking. Next slide, please, Liz.
Sorry, there's a little bit delay here on my side.
No problem. So in terms of discovery questions, this is what I personally ask my clients for Website by Tonight. And so these all might help you get clarity on, as you're prepared, let's say you recognize that you need a new website, whether it's a rebuild of an old website, or you just never had one over the years and it's about time you get one. First one being, what's the purpose of your website and what are you hoping to accomplish? Chances are, if you're on this call, you're an independent consultant or solo practitioner. So the purpose of your website and what you're hoping to accomplish is all the same, like what I discussed of you just want a simple professional brochure website that establishes your credibility and makes it easy for someone the ideal prospect to want to reach out to you and fill out that contact form to start the conversation. Next is, who is your ideal customer, client, or audience, or usual demographic? And so I think that's important to think about. For example, if you have a doctor's office that appeals to your ideal prospect is a child, chances are you want to maybe make your website a little bit more playful or lighthearted and have imagery of children, as opposed to imagery of, let's say, senior citizens, right? That are not going to look like your ideal client, right? So I think it's just something to keep in mind as you're finding images and thinking about how you write. Is you're creating the website and writing with your ideal clients or prospects in mind. Next, what are some websites you like and why? And in a perfect world, it's best if the websites you want to emulate are in the same industry or have the same purpose. So for example, if you're an independent consultant, it probably doesn't do much good, and you're offering custom consulting services, it probably doesn't do much good to say that you like the apple.com website because, yeah, that's a nice looking website, but it has a different purpose. They're a consumer electronics and software company, so they have lots of really high quality product images and software, screenshots and all that kind of stuff. So instead of thinking about sites you like apple.com, think about other types of consulting websites or B2B services websites, as that's much more related to what you do. Next, when people see your website or brand, what adjectives or feelings do you want to pop into their minds? Is there an overall tone you're going for? This one's pretty self-explanatory, but for example, if you are let's say you work as a consultant in the banking and finance industry, from what I understand, that's a pretty conservative, buttoned-up industry, and so you probably don't want to speak to lackadaisically or casually or colloquially. You probably want to speak a little bit more confidently and firmly, so that it comes off with those adjectives that correspond, that are desirable in that industry, such as confidence, trust, stability, things like that. So just be aware of how the imagery and your wording relates to the adjectives or feelings that you want to induce in your website visitors, and those specifically the website visitors that are your target client or prospect. And lastly, I believe Liz had asked this before, and people found it useful, is some Squarespace templates, or what are some Squarespace templates you like and why? And so specifically for independent consultants, I found that the following templates, you can make a lot of templates work on Squarespace for independent consultants, but some good suggestions here are the following. Liz will send out the slides after the fact, so I don't have to read through all these. But my general rule of thumb here is, let's say you're an independent consultant, chances are you don't want to pick a Squarespace template that looks like it's for photography or video or media of some kind, because that's going to be very image heavy. And chances are that's just not going to be relevant for the type of text heavy content you have on your own website. Getting started. So step one is you want to organize your content, links to perspective images, and ideas into a single document. That really helps. And on my website, and I can't remember, I can send it out to Liz, the template that I use to send to clients, which is like a Google Doc that you can just make a copy of yourself. And it has some guiding questions and things like that you can follow to help you organize your content and links and perspective images into a single document and resource, so that everything lives in one place, because it's really easy when you're planning a website to get scattered and overwhelmed. And then next is Squarespace makes it really easy to start a free trial by just going to their templates page, or just going right on their website and clicking to start a free trial. Again, these are the suggestions of good starting places with templates. And I know a bunch of them will look unrelated to what you do. So for example, I know Pacific is a template that is for like a burger restaurant or something. And so I ask that you disregard the placeholder content on a template and instead think more about, oh, this is where images and text layout, and this is kind of how things are structured on the page, text and images, as opposed to the actual content from the placeholder, the demo templates that Squarespace has set up. And at the very, very end of, I mean, you can buy your domain whenever. I recommend that you buy your domain when you know what it should be. Ideally, you get yourbusinessname.com or something similar. In general, I recommend a .com. And if you need to buy a domain and you haven't already, I do recommend GoDaddy because their domains are very easy to connect to Squarespace and their customer support is really good.
So Jared, this is where you get to catch your breath, and I have a couple of other things to add, more
Sure.
around not how you build your website, but what you put on it. And the biggest mistake that I see that consultants make is they try to be, everything for everybody, and it's much better to know your niche and refine your core service offerings. So sort of do your homework. The workshop that I lead, Branding to Build Your Business, is all about figuring out what's the tip of your spear. What do you do really, really well, and that you have the confidence where you can draw people in. So then, if you can, try to feature the case studies, client testimonials, client logos. Sometimes I get the question, well, clients say that I'm not supposed to use them for publicity purposes or whatever. Yeah, you have to look at your contract, see what your contract says with your client. But my personal philosophy has always been to beg forgiveness. So my consulting website has lots of logos of clients on there. And if they say, hey, you're not supposed to use our logo, I just say, oh, I'm sorry, silly me, and I would take it down. So that's my personal philosophy, is to beg forgiveness. So anyway, those are just some other tips specifically for consultants.
And thank you for chiming in, Liz. And obviously you're a pro at all this, and in my experiences as well, with my own clients and many of them are successful independent consultants, I wholeheartedly agree with all of those things. And small note before I proceed into this slide is to remind everyone that you all are welcome to. We're going to take questions at the end, but you're also welcome to just start populating the Zoom chat with questions you have now, whether they're related to a specific slide I'm covering or from a previous slide, or just general questions you'll have at the end. You're more than welcome to chat them in, and I'm happy to answer them. So please don't hold back. Moving on here, as far as using high quality photos, if you all remembered, that's a strong recommendation that I have. So some bullet points here for that is, first, make sure that they're high resolution. And that's a little bit of a broad term. In general, just make sure that they're not blurry or pixelated. We've all seen those websites that have oddly blurry images, or they look blocky or pixelated, and it just kind of turns us off for the rest of the site. Next is, this is probably the most important one, is use images that look like actual photographs, like things that actually happened, as opposed to something such as everyone smiling, looking at the camera and making a thumbs up, or some sort of generic 3D or Photoshop graphic. So Liz just advanced the slide here. So these are some examples. Notice the orange X's. The orange X's are over terrible images, right? Those are bad examples. So the top left is this weird 3D graphic that is a compass that's pointing to answers. That looks stupid. People all smiling and pumping their fists looking at the camera, and it's like a weird tilted background and pixelated. That looks silly. And then the one with the generic looking man with some 3D overlay, that looks silly as well. And I'm sure you all agree. Instead, the bottom photo, that's a stock photo, but it looks like a real image with real people that would actually happen. And it's not pixelated, it looks nice and clear. So that's the comparison of bad images versus good images. Really quickly, someone asked a question. I went to the Squarespace template site and they did not list the Pacific template. Is it still available? Excellent question. I'm not sure if it's still available. Sometimes Squarespace, it's not that they stop supporting a template. They just stop offering it as a new template to clients. So if they did remove the Pacific template, I know they are starting to add in a ton of new ones that are even better, that use the same kind of framework as Pacific, but it's even easier to customize. So if I list a template that you don't see there, don't worry. I'm sure one of the other ones is, and I'm sure there's plenty of other designs, if you don't see it, that actually look better with the demo content than Pacific anyway. And then lastly, on this note about using high quality photos, is here are some suggested sources that you can download them from. So the first 3 are free ones, and then iStock usually starts around $10 or $12 a photo, and Getty Images can actually be purchased right from within Squarespace. You can preview it on your site and then decide to purchase it, and basically all those images are $10. Getty Images might actually be the easiest for that reason, because you can just buy it from right within your site and preview it and everything. So those are where I suggest getting good imagery from.
Jared, I wanted to mention that when I send out these slides in the follow-up email, all of these names are hyperlinked, so you'll be able to click straight through to these websites with URLs. Another question or comment came in. Companies are very fussy about how their logos are represented. Where do you get the logo so that it's high quality, not fuzzy or stretched, etc.? Can you click from LinkedIn? I usually go to Google Images, and you'll find, like, depending on the size of the client, like one of my clients is Nike. There's like 50 different types of Nike logos there.
I never heard of them.
Yeah, so you kind of have to play around with which one has a transparent background, and whatever. But
Liz, I'm impressed. Those are very nuanced details. But that's exactly what I was going to say as well, is Google Images, and you want one with a transparent background. So usually that's a PNG file type. And you never want to scale a logo. So you never want to like stretch it. You want to keep those dimensions intact. So just like find a good high resolution image of the logo that is not blurry on the site and has a transparent background, so there's no like white box around it, for example. And then, yeah, so exactly what Liz said. And then you might need a graphic designer, just like even not a good graphic designer, just like a halfway capable one, just in terms of getting different logos to look right next to each other. Though Squarespace does have, I would recommend uploading them using Squarespace's gallery grid block, which allows you to upload multiple images and they align next to each other on the page. So that's the easiest way to lay them out once you actually have the images as well. But the graphic designer may come in just to resize the logos a little bit to make them look uniform in that gallery grid. And then next, if you all remember, I recommended to include a contact form. And this is a really important point that I feel strongly on, is using a contact form instead of listing your contact information. And the reason I say that is because if you just have your phone number or an email, it doesn't allow you to frame the conversation. If someone just sends you an email to your email address, that's fine. But they don't have all the information you like to hear up front from them anyway. So it's an extra email or two wasted. And then also, it's hard to tell with the subject line if they're a prospective lead or if they're just some spammer or something. And then I really recommend not just having your phone number on the website, because there's so many robocalls these days, or you may be out running an errand or something, and then your biggest prospect ever calls you. And if it's loud and you can't talk or whatever, you're not in a position to serve that lead. And so you just miss the deal altogether or it's possible you miss the deal altogether because you're not best equipped to answer that prospect, or if you just miss a call, or even likely to call that number back if you don't know them. So I highly recommend actually not including your email address, or at the very least not including your phone number, and instead asking people to fill out just a short contact form with their name, email address, phone number being optional, a how can we help you field, and then a how'd you hear about us. And the thing is when you have that contact form on your website, it'll go right to your email, and it'll have a very specific subject line. So when you see it in your email inbox, you know it's a website contact form, And so it's better, it'll stick out amongst all the other email you get, and you'll likely be able to see it as important and kind of flag it as something that needs your attention sooner rather than later.
Jared, I can serve as a testimonial here. You know, I've had a consulting business since 2004. Okay, so for the first many years, I didn't have a website at all. Then I have a website, really liked it, but never put a contact form on there because in my business, I'm super picky about who I partner with, like consultants I partner with. So I didn't want strangers reaching out to me. Less picky about clients, of course. But after taking your first workshop, this webinar, I did add a contact form, and I have to say it's really worked out well for me. I have a drop-down list where they can select why they're trying to reach out to me, and one of the options is I want to talk to you about something else. And I've had a couple really interesting relationships develop because of that drop-down box. So I was not a fan of the contact form until I heard you preach it. I implemented it, which was very easy, and yeah, I'm very pleased that I did. So
I'm honored I got you to drink some of the Kool-Aid. Thank you for that.
You did, and it worked. So yeah.
Awesome. And it doesn't mean that, you know, you're going to get some people that you don't want to hear from through the contact form inevitably, and that's totally fine. You just delete their email. But like Liz mentioned, you might be losing the opportunity on some great relationships or partners or the biggest deal of your life by not having the contact form. So yeah, there might be some slight annoyances, but they're very minimal compared to the potential upside, and also how easy it is for your prospects to reach out to you. Like, is a prospect just going to want to pick up the phone and try to play phone tag with you 2 or 3 times? Or if your competitor has a contact form and the prospect can't tell, is on the fence about both you, maybe the competitor wins that business, which would be terrible. So contact form is a nice insurance policy to help make sure people reach you, and it allows you to respond effectively. Next, here's an example of a Squarespace consulting website a lot of people have liked, and something like this is certainly doable. And so this is an example of just one page. You click one of the links at the top, and it automatically scrolls to that section. It's a clean layout. It's a real-looking photo. If you look at the banner image, it's not some cheesy stock photography. Testimonials are lower on this page as well if you visit. The Let's Chat or Let's Connect area on the website, that's a very clear call to action. If you want to chat, here's a link that says Let's Chat. And then there's social media icons at the bottom as well. So that's just one example of a consulting website you can make on Squarespace.
Jared, did you say this already, but the Let's Chat or Contact Me or Let's Talk button should be at the top right corner?
Oh my gosh, I don't think I actually mentioned that in this presentation, but that is an excellent point, and that's usually my general rule of thumb is, and thank you for bringing that up, and if everyone takes a minute to just think about it, or at the very least, like just be aware of it when you're browsing the internet in the next few days, you'll notice that that call to action button, which is something like get in touch or let's talk or whatever in many cases, is often in the top right corner. And that's just what we're used to. That's a general best practice is the logo is either in the middle or the top left, and then the contact or get started is in the top right. So here's another example of a client we did, A. Phillips Consulting. Notice her logo is in the top middle, and then contacts in the top right. And then on the bottom of the homepage is also a contact area usually. And then with the Carabiner Group, this is a website I like, but this is not a website that we did. And notice the logo's in the top left, and the get started is in the top right. And that's just what people are used to. That's what people are looking for. So if it's not broken, don't fix it. It's clearly effective.
Okay, so now we enter into the fun part. Fun part for participants, hard for me because I have to juggle with Zoom. But in the confirmation email, we asked people if they wanted to have their current website reviewed. And if you didn't send in the URL, you can put it in the chat and Jared will do it on the fly. But in the meantime, I do have another website. Actually, we did get one person send something in. I just have to figure out how to share that screen.
Sure.
is always a challenge for me.
I think Liz, the easiest way from what I remember about Zoom is to open the that link in a separate browser, so that's the only tab, and then re-clicking the share on Zoom, and it will give you the option to share just that tab. Actually, that works great.
Did it work?
Yes.
Okay. So yes, this is from a consultant. The name of his company is Paradigma, not quite sure how to
Hmm.
pronounce that.
Hmm.
And so why don't you take us through some of the things you like, don't like about this?
Sure. um, so I will happily walk through this one.
So
And
I'll
then
scroll
if
down so you can get an idea of what it looks like.
yes, yes.
Okay.
And if anyone else wants their site reviewed, we might have time for one additional review after this. If you want to just live chat in, I promise I'll be honest, but I won't be mean because chances are you are not a website designer with your expertise. You're a consultant for something else, right? And so I couldn't do that. I couldn't do what you do. So yeah, don't take it personally. But if anyone wants to chat in their website link, I'd be happy to review it and just give some free feedback. So with Paradigma Strategy, the logo is in the top left. The contact us is in the top right. Uh, I think, I mean, just like some qualms off the bat is, and what I guess what I do like is home services and news and contact us. I think the first thing I notice is for a site like this, you don't need a little search icon because you don't even know like the prospect doesn't even know or the visitor doesn't even know what to search for, and chances are there's not even enough content to need a search box. So it's just kind of silly. Liz, also if you scroll to the top right, I know that I recognize this immediately as a WordPress template. And so like that button in the top right corner, if you click it, it shouldn't be there. That's like a placeholder section of the site, right? Um, so that's something that this person just didn't remove is some of this dummy content. Also scrolling down this like skyline, it's fine. It's kind of pixelated and kind of boring, but it's okay. But there's no text. So I have no idea what this company does. So this is prime real estate. I guess kind of pun intended because this is a landscape shot of a lot of real estate. But this is prime real estate on your site where you need to say what you do and or for whom, or someone's just going to go somewhere else, right? Like most people are not going to want to scroll down and read through and figure out and solve a puzzle as to what it is that your business does. So it's a huge mistake to not have text over the banner here. Keep scrolling down, Liz. Here, it looks like there's some sort of bug where a bunch of this text is cut off by the banner. I'm not sure what's happening, so that's a big problem. Um, on the left is this like cheesy word graphic of just like buzzwords for consulting that I don't understand what that's supposed to mean. And I can't even entirely tell what the organization does still because this text is cut off by the banner. Scrolling below, Liz, latest from the blog, look at these dates, right? November 22nd, 2013, October 10th, 2013. So I have looking at this as just a prospect that doesn't know I don't know anything about Paradigma. It could be an amazing consulting firm, but the website's telling me that this person maybe has been in business for a long time, but they haven't touched their website in 6 years almost. So are they still in business? I don't know. Is it worth reaching out to them? Does this person take themselves seriously? I don't know, right? It just leaves a lot of questions. And then this client testimonial is fine. I don't have any context as to whom or who Stephen Schaaf is, and I don't know what Arkin Brand is. So I mean, there's not really much context with the testimonial. And if you keep scrolling down, Liz, the footer is okay. I don't think it should have a cell phone number on here or a generic email. And then the about us, okay, Paradigma is a consulting firm located in Denver. Our approach to organizational change is informed by social organizational psychology. So honestly, it took all the way to scrolling down to the footer to like an obscure blurb in the bottom left corner to even see what Paradigma does. Like I don't know who their ideal client is. I don't understand what their solutions are or anything, but finally I have a vague idea of what they do. And then also the footer doesn't, it like references blog posts with these blog categories of recent posts, but these posts are from 2013 and these categories are just categories assigned to the blog. So this is, and also at the very bottom, copyright 2014 Paradigma Strategy and powered by WordPress. That just looks kind of amateur. That like it says like powered by WordPress and copyright 2014 being like 5 years ago. So I would remove that kind of stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of, and then I'm sure if you click the bottom right social links, I have a feeling that at least one of them doesn't work, but maybe all three of them don't. Okay, so we have a Twitter link that works. We have a LinkedIn link that might work, and then the RSS feed link is kind of moot because I don't think people really use that anymore. So at least one link that isn't worth it for social media. So that's my review of the homepage. And Liz, if you want to click through to the services.
Well, I think one of the key takeaways, Jared, is that the services, at least a short summary, needs to be on the homepage. We need to know what this person does.
Exactly. Ideally in the banner or something. And then notice when you click services, Liz, look in that top URL bar where it says paradigmastrategy.com/page ID equals 16.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, that's kind of silly. Like that should say /services, right?
Mm.
And then, when you click services, it goes organizational change. You can close out of that, by the way. And then when you look at organizational change management services, now it finally dives into what that entails. Oh, 1 second. And so, I mean, it does say what this person does, but kind of in these bullet points, and it's kind of a lot of text. What is nice to see is client success blurbs, so like little mini case studies, that's fine. But it does look kind of unattractive and just kind of like a lot of text to read. And then on the right side is the links to the blogs, which is a default feature of this template is to have the blog sidebar. But I mean, those are such old blogs, like, so they shouldn't even be featured they shouldn't be featured in general, but especially not on this page, right? Like 1/3 of the page on the right side is totally moot with the search box and the recent posts. Go ahead and click contact us, and then we'll open it up to if anyone else wants to submit their site, and then I will get to Zora's question. So on the contact form, we have name, email, subject, and message. If you recall my contact form, there's an optional phone number, just in case. It's just nice to have. If someone doesn't want to enter it, no big deal. The subject, that doesn't really guide anything, so I think a subject line is moot. And then your message, it's like, okay, well, what am I supposed to say? Like someone could just type something, I wish to work with you, let's have a call, and then you have no information. So that's why I say, instead of your message, I have a big message box of saying, how can we help you? Or what made you want to reach out? And then a very final box below, which is optional, of how'd you hear about us? So it gives so much more context than someone just filling out this form because they might be an amazing lead, but they're so vague on this form that you can't tell that they're a serious prospect. So those are my general impressions of this website, Liz. If this person's still in business, I highly recommend they update the site.
They are. Clearly, it's a stale site. But I do want to point out, I went to this person's LinkedIn profile.
Mm-hmm.
I clicked on their contact info, and that's where I found this URL.
Mm-hmm.
So even though it's a stale site, it's still in part of his LinkedIn profile. So, and another thing is, some of you used an email address with a custom domain name. So it'd be like, StebleConsulting.com. And if I see it's like Liz at StebleConsulting.com, I'm like, oh, let's look at the website. And then I go to StebleConsulting.com and it says page not found. That's bad too.
That is a huge faux pas. Like not only a faux pas, but something that hurts me deep down.
Yeah. So that's why hopefully those people are on this webinar.
Right, and they realize, oh, I better fix that. So.
I'm going to let you answer these questions that came in on the chat while I go toggle back to the slides.
Yeah, absolutely. So Zora first asks, I am starting my website. Any recommendation on name and domain? My recommendation on domain is that it should be a .com, and I do recommend it from purchase from GoDaddy, like I mentioned before. And then as far as your name, That is a little bit trickier, and it's just something you'll have to figure out on your own, unfortunately. If it's just if what I will say is that if you're just branding it as yourself, if you don't plan to hire anyone anytime soon, or just in general, there's nothing wrong with just having your name.com or your last name consulting.com or something like that.
Yeah,
Um, it,
people worry about having a catchy name, and really it doesn't matter as long as it's fairly easy to spell. Um, that's probably more important.
yes, and I'm really glad you brought that up because notice you and I were struggling with Paradigma Consulting, right? Like paradigm in and of itself is a hard word to spell, but then Paradigma Consulting is kind of tough to say and it's kind of clunky. And then
Very hard to spell.
it's very easy to mess up. So yes, something to spell that is easy to spell and easy to say in general is actually really important. And then like I mentioned, get you want whatever that is. You definitely want your .com domain to match. You don't want like a .net or .us or one of those. The next person asked, I'm wondering how the website should relate to one's LinkedIn site and resume. How do you maintain your branding across them while making each one somewhat unique? What is the specific purpose of each? Really quickly, I'm going to answer that, but Zora says, can I use my initials? That sounds great. So your initials consulting, and then see if your initials consulting.com is available. Maybe it's, first initial hyphen last initial consulting.com. And so to answer the previous question, maybe Liz can chime in a little bit more on this, just because this seems a little bit more nuanced to consulting. But your LinkedIn page should just be a way for people to quickly, I think in a perfect world, your website is the most customized thing and allows you to take the most liberty to show things like client case studies and about me and everything. A LinkedIn site is fine, but it's just like a high level summary, and a resume is maybe a little bit more detailed with specific accomplishments. And maybe the LinkedIn site and resume tell a similar amount of detail in general, but the website is really where you excite. Like these days, every consultant has a LinkedIn, and chances are it looks pretty good. And every consultant has a resume, and chances are it looks pretty good. But not every consultant has a website. So when you have a website, that sets you apart and allows you to tell a more interesting, compelling story to get your clients excited about the possibility of working with you. So your website should really be the most detailed and should include those things that a LinkedIn site and resume can't include, such as a strong client testimonial or a deeper dive into a case study or a more intricate about me page or what have you, and should be the most unique thing. So that's overall, hopefully
Jared,
that clears it up.
I agree with you. The first place a person's likely to go is LinkedIn. One of the easiest ways to tie your LinkedIn profile and your website together is through colors and branding. So I lead a workshop called How to Optimize Your LinkedIn Profile, and there's a way to change the background behind your picture, and whatever image you choose there, you can use that same image on your website and or color scheme. So that's one of the easiest ways. Another is once you get a logo, which we'll get into in the next slide, actually, there's a way to have that appear on your LinkedIn profile too. I'm publishing a blog on that, how to get rid of the gray square on your LinkedIn profile, publishing that blog in the next few days. So there is a way to tie them together, but yes, you could, the key messages need to be the same, like what I call the tip of the spear, right? What's your niche? That needs to be clear on both. And then the website, you can add more detail, and the contact form, make it easy for people to get a hold of you.
Well said. And I'm going to just answer these questions before I dive into the case studies and testimonials bit. Paula asks, a blog is time consuming to maintain. And then I guess she's asking how to make a blog that supports a consulting business. Any tips to make it valuable? A blog, it can be really valuable, but I wouldn't worry about, you don't need a blog. I would just get your version 1 of your site up, and then on Squarespace, it makes it very easy to start a blog when and if that time comes. What I will say is, if you're blogging, I wouldn't worry about blogging like every day or something like that, but I would worry, maybe try to submit a blog like however often you can commit to it. So maybe once every 2 weeks or once every month. And that blog should ideally be some sort of valuable bit. It shouldn't be like a few paragraphs either. It should be like a good, valuable piece to your that relates to your target prospects and the pains that they have, and give some free content to prove your expertise and to help them open their mind to be like, oh, Paula is an example at XYZ field. Or, you know what, I didn't realize I had that problem. Maybe I should speak to Paula. So a blog can be an amazing way to attract new clients to your business, but it's much more of a strategic thing. And it's not something you have to commit to immediately. But if you do want to, if it's something you can commit to and you do enjoy writing and you're willing to commit to it, maybe once every 2 weeks, posting once every 2 weeks or once every month, it could be something worthwhile to really further your thought leadership, which I know is big in consulting.
Yeah, but the first thing is to make sure you at least get a brochure website up.
Exactly, because the blog, like I mentioned, is easy to add after the fact. Lynn asks, GoDaddy also creates websites and hosts and maintains it. How do you compare GoDaddy versus Squarespace to build and host? So one thing I want to be clear on is Squarespace requires you to use their hosting, so you can't build a Squarespace site and host it on GoDaddy. I only recommended buying the domain from GoDaddy and connecting it to Squarespace, just in case anyone's confused. So strictly when it comes to a GoDaddy builder and hosting versus Squarespace building and hosting, GoDaddy's website builder, from what I've seen, is fine, and their hosting is, I'm sure, good. But I really think Squarespace, like GoDaddy was a domain. They do a lot of things, and the main thing they do is domains. That's probably how they make the majority of their money. And so the website building is like an additional part of their business, but it's not their core competency. Whereas Squarespace, they first and foremost are a website building platform and company. So in my experience, Squarespace just has way better templates, is way easier to use, and has way better features already built in. Whereas on GoDaddy, it can be fine, but I just think Squarespace is a far superior solution because that's really their core competency. Whereas GoDaddy, it's just like another business line.
Jared, I can be, sometimes people get worried about, well, how do I transfer domain from GoDaddy to Squarespace or whatever? And everybody knows that I am not tech savvy, okay? But I was able to do it without any problem. I host my blog on Squarespace, and I bought the domain on GoDaddy. It was a piece of cake. So don't worry about the technology piece. It's actually very easy.
Exactly, yeah. So for example, I buy all my domains on GoDaddy, and I have multiple Squarespace sites, as you all can imagine. And once you buy your domain on GoDaddy, all that you do is you go into Squarespace, you enter your domain, it automatically detects that it's registered to GoDaddy. You click connect and log in through your GoDaddy to your GoDaddy account through Squarespace, and it connects all the pipes for you, so to speak, and your site's live on your domain in like 10 minutes. So it's just a matter of logging into GoDaddy through Squarespace to connect it. So it's really, really, excuse me, really, really easy.
Jared, in the interest of time, let's not dig into the case studies and testimonials because people are going to get these slides.
Sure.
But let's jump ahead to some more FAQs.
Yeah, absolutely. And what time is it, Liz?
It's 3 minutes before the hour.
Oh, thank you. And then very lastly, Dean asked, do you need to buy the email address from GoDaddy, or can we do it another way? If you're okay with using a G Suite, which is a Gmail branded to your business and at your domain, you can sign up for a G Suite business email from right within Squarespace, and they give you the first year for free. And then Liz can probably recommend Office 365 if you prefer Office 365 and Outlook. I think you can get that right through GoDaddy.
Yeah, you can also get email hosting through GoDaddy without getting the full Office 365.
Ah, good to know. So some really quick FAQs, and then I'll briefly go into Website by Tonight. So FAQs, do you need a logo? No, Squarespace allows you to create a basic text logo. You can get a fancier logo later through Fiverr or 99 Designs or a service called Looka. And then really quickly, some people ask about singular plural pronouns or writing in the first or third person. What I would say is if you're a single consultant and that's how you brand yourself, write in the first person and write in a singular pronoun. That being said, if you're branded as a company and you feel comfortable with it, feel free to write in plural pronouns and the third person, but in general, it's just whatever feels right and being consistent.
Being consistent.
And then very last recommendation slide before I get into Website by Tonight. Promise we'll be respectful of your time here. Don't use a personal email account for your business. So don't use, your email address should not end in @gmail.com or @Yahoo. That's where you get the business email branded to your domain. Only use social media links on your website for any accounts you actively maintain. So especially LinkedIn, and maybe you maintain like a Twitter or something. Minimize linking to other sites off of your website. But for those that you do, set them to open a new tab or in a new tab or window, which Squarespace allows you to do. Test your site on multiple devices and make sure to send it to others to test and proofread as well. And then a great thing afterwards is once your website's built, it's totally normal and completely acceptable to post on LinkedIn and let your network know and update your social media profiles. And hopefully that gets you a nice influx of traffic, and it might lead to some quick new clients as well.
It's a terrific reason for sending a personal email to all of your contacts too. Anybody that might hire you or might refer you to somebody to hire you, it's a great reason to reconnect with people. Like, hey, I stepped out on my own. I've launched my new website. Really excited about it.
And people are going to want to click through to it. Like, it's just something fun to do. It's not. It doesn't feel like an action item that they have to do.
It doesn't. It's not. It doesn't feel salesy.
Yeah. And so yeah. If you need additional help, would love to chat with you, and you can schedule a free ideas call with me, Jared Gold, at Website by Tonight, and you can just go to websitebytonight.com to learn more. And so we have two different packages, and actually, let me back up and say what Website by Tonight does. So we're the easiest and most cost-effective way to create a simple and professional website. So how it works is we would send you a single Google Doc, which is a project brief and content document, to quickly complete, answering a few aesthetic questions, which are in the project brief, and then just adding your content for things like home, services, about, contact, and shooting me a quick email. And then I'll review it, make sure everything looks good. And then if everything looks good, I will connect you to one of my designers. They're all based in the US and fluent in English. And they will build your website live and in real time via screen share. So instead of taking months of email back and forth and annoyance, if anyone's ever built a website on their own, it's a mess. And so this way, instead of this email back and forth and all this risk of wondering how it's going to look and taking months for maybe something you hate, here you're building it in real time via screen share, just like what we're doing via Zoom, walking through the slides. You're watching the designer as he or she is building the site, and you're saying, oh, try this color, move this here. What about this? How does this look? And you're seeing it happen in front of you in real time to make those decisions. And so we have two different packages. And then we launch on your domain and show you how to do basic maintenance right on Squarespace and transfer the site to you, and you're all set. And so we have two different packages. One is $8.99 flat, and one is $12.99 flat, depending on the amount of time that the amount of pages you have and the amount of customization or handholding you want. And I'm happy to, if you are interested, I'm happy to walk you through and hear your needs and make a recommendation as to which would be the best package for you. I'd say maybe about 70 to 80% of the clients, $8.99 is good. And then the other 20 to 30%, the $12.99 is preferable. And so yeah, go ahead.
Brianna has a question. How long is the screen sharing if they partner with Website by Tonight? How long does that take?
Yeah, so it's kind of a mix, and it's whatever works for you and your designer. You'll kind of co-create a plan. But essentially for the $8.99 option, the website is done in up to 3 hours of screen sharing. And in the $12.99 option, the website is done in up to 4 hours of screen sharing. And then the designer adds some polish on his or her own time. Really quickly, Pika members, if you mention Pika, I give you a discount code for $50 off either package. Lynn, I promise we did not plant Lynn's question here, but she has said, I am confused because you said you can use Squarespace to build my site, but you, of course, have Website by Tonight. So why would I use Squarespace when I could use you? Lynn, I I have to say I agree with you in many cases. So some people are tech and design savvy and excuse me, want to give this a shot on their own, and I encourage them to do that. Excuse me, I'm sorry. That's totally fine. In the case of independent consultants, the way I see it is maybe in some cases you can have a nice looking site and you do it on your own time without paying anything. But the way I see it is a lot of times it makes sense to just hire a professional to get it done right the first time, to save you a lot of time and headaches because of the opportunity cost. What if it takes you 20 hours to build a website you're happy with, but you charge $100 an hour? Well, that opportunity cost says you just technically spent $2,000 to build the site yourself when you could have went through Website by Tonight and gotten it to look just how you wanted it to for only $8.99 or $12.99. So that's the way I see it. So here's the whole toolkit if you want to try it on your own. But if you think that it's not a good use of your time and you'd rather just get it done right the first time and set up correctly and low risk and very cost effectively, and not opportunity costs of taking out lots of hours on your end that could be with client work, then yes, would love to hear from you. Would love to talk with you via Website by Tonight.
Jared, in the notes that I send out, I believe I send a link to the prep document on Pika's website, so people can literally like go through your process on their own, and if they want to try Squarespace and building it on their own, they can.
Perfect. Yeah.
But if you get into Squarespace, you've been in there like 30 minutes and you're already like feeling like, oh my God, this is too much, then you can always call Jared.
Exactly. Yeah. Like if you want to give it a shot on your own, like I would encourage everyone to look at that project brief and content document just to get an idea of how to frame everything and get your ideas all in one place. Because we send that to all of our clients anyway, and they really find it to be a valuable resource. And then, if you want to try it on your own, I completely understand. But I think most people, even though Squarespace is an easy to use platform, it's pretty overwhelming to learn at first. And there's a lot of best practices and you don't know what you don't know. So it's much easier, in my opinion, to instead pay someone to do it. And then you're given the basic maintenance training of how to keep up with it. And once it's set up, it's super easy to swap out text or images or whatever. So that's the big idea.
You have options.
Yes. Oh, and Lynn asks, so I'm not creative at all with websites. What do I need to bring to the table besides my written ideas? You don't need to bring anything. Just write the content and maybe ideally send us some sites you like and why. And we take it from there and we can help you find good stock photos from within the package. But Lynn, feel free to go to websitebytonight.com and submit a message through the contact form. I want to make sure Liz has a chance to tell you about Pika, because I highly recommend Pika as an organization.
Jared, thank you. That was very, very politically correct and a nice handoff.
Thank you.
So this is we offer one free webinar a month, and this is one of our more popular ones. And this is a way for people to get introduced to Pika and the type of events that we host. But in general, our whole mission at Pika is to help you be successful as a self-employed consultant. But everybody who's a self-employed consultant has some sort of FUD. Fear, uncertainty, or doubt. And that's what Pika is about. We're about conquering your FUD. So we run workshops, coaching, we have online guides, templates, tools, anything you need, we've got your back. So that's what Pika is about. And we're also building communities across the country. I just had a community council meeting this morning with our 10 leads across the country. So it's just a great place, a resource. Our intention is to be the first place you turn when you have a question about running your own consulting business. So we encourage you to join. It's only $300 a year, which is a deal. Plus, then if you hire Jared, you're already getting a $50 discount. So there's a couple other questions that came in. Paula said, Jared, will you review the final project? Jared?
Sorry about that.
I was going to say, maybe he left early.
I muted myself so you didn't get any background noise while you were chatting. So yeah, Paula, good question. So I've spent a lot of time and headaches finding the best designers that are both good designers, Squarespace pros, good at working with clients in a candid way, and then also having good judgment and sensibility. So I fully trust my designers. And I do personally look at every website. So in the very rare case that a website I think has some things to be improved on, I'll certainly chime in and ensure that it's fixed. So like I don't just let the business like run without me. I always live in a slight state of paranoia, which is a benefit for my clients because I check every website to make sure it's good.
It's kind of your name on the door. I mean, it's not called Jared's Websites, but yeah, you do stand behind your product.
Right. It's not Jared by tonight, but I fully support it.
Yeah. So in the follow-up notes, you'll get these slides. You'll have access to the recording, which will be up on YouTube probably Monday or so. And also links to the guide. And that's it. We'll take it from there. So yes, somebody just said, thanks, I'm ready to get my website started. That's the idea. It's not difficult and you need to have one if you're self-employed. So it just increases your professionalism, and legally, you need to have proof of advertising. Those laws are changing as we speak. There's going to be a new law going into effect in California next week. Governor Newsom's going to sign it. And so that's one big thing is you need to have evidence that you are seeking business from more than one client, and a website is the way to do that. So go out there, get started, and thanks for joining, everybody. You'll get the follow-up email no later than Monday, hopefully today or over the weekend. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you, everyone, for your questions. It was a pleasure.